Welcome to Behind the Black Belt, a podcast about the people and black belts of BJJ.
Welcome to Behind the Black Belt. I'm your host, Rich, and my guest today is BJJ Black Belt Jess Fraser. Now, Jess is one of the BJJ instructors at Vanguard BJJ in Melbourne, Victoria, and she is a fierce competitor, having represented Australia 4 times at the Abu Dhabi World Pro. Jess also medaled in no-gi at IBJJF World Championships as a black belt in 2017, just to mention a couple of the competitions she has been in. Jess Fraser is also the creator and driving force behind Australian Girls in Gi, known as AGIG, which is a community that is cultivating an all-inclusive culture within BJJ. Jess Fraser, welcome to Behind the Black Belt, and thank you so much for being on the show.
Thanks for having me. It's very cool.
All right, Jess, so we have got a whole bunch of stuff to talk about. So why don't you kick us off and get us started? Let's start with where were you born and where were you raised?
I don't think anyone's asked me the born question.
There you go. There you go.
I was born in Nowra Hospital because my family lived in Jervis Bay, and that was the closest hospital at the time. So
okay.
Yes.
So you're
New
born
South Wales, raised in Canberra. That's me in a nutshell, I guess. Born and raised.
So where in Canberra specifically?
I grew up in O'Connor, up the hill in the like shadow of Black Mountain Tower, and went to Turner Primary, and that was kind of my hood, I guess. Lots of magpies, lots of sweeping season, that kind of vibe.
Yeah, and I mean,
very awesome place.
And I heard you talk about on YouTube about how much you loved growing up in Canberra. What did you love about it?
I guess there was I didn't know better. If I had have, known about being near the beach or the snow, I might have had different opinions, but we just had crazy freedom, it was just always on bikes, always outdoors, up in the bush behind mum's place. And just building things and creating things. I was down at Civic Pool a lot and just flipping off towers as much as I possibly could. So I was upside down a lot, which came in handy later on in life. But lots of the thing about Canberra, there's the absence of activities around water or whatever. And if you don't have a car, you're kind of landlocked. A lot of us really got into DIY punk scene and stuff like that. So making fanzines and creating our own mini concerts, and creating things like Punk in the Park that's in, I can't remember what the name of the park is, but it's, that concrete castle thing that's down near the Corinthian.
Oh, yeah.
There's an amphitheatre there that we used to have gigs at, and just stuff like that. That's what we do. Spend a lot of time at skate parks and just sort of keep ourselves entertained.
That's cool.
It's very free range entertainment.
It's so refreshing to hear someone talk about Canberra and not complain how cold it is. That's generally all you hear about.
It's a nightmare. And I don't think anyone will truly understand cold like a Canberra uni student or student. Those houses in Ainslie, you would just wear an electric blanket in a shed.
That's so true.
One, and it was horrible. But it's just Canberra. You don't know any different. Kind of just, I don't know. You look at Bombala and you go, well, at least it's not that, I guess. Everyone has a henpecking order, right?
There's always worse. There's always worse.
Exactly. Terrible, but
And what did your parents do, Jess?
Dad was absent and a nightmare. Okay. Mum is incredible. She raised 3 of us solo and is an architect. So I watched her when I was young. She was a nurse until I was about 6. And then when I was 6, she put herself through TAFE and became an architect. So, badass, genuinely badass. Always been impressed by what she's been able to do. And even more so now that I'm older than she was when she was doing all of that stuff, I just think holy shit, really, really impressive.
Absolutely.
To raise kids like that and to further your education and to just impressive as.
Absolutely. So sort of by the sounds of it, raised 3 of you on her own, as well as put herself through higher education to become an architect. That's incredible.
yeah, and she now has like one of the most successful practices in Canberra. And like, so what I'm trying to do at the moment is collate every single job she's done, because she like designs renovations and stuff for people, right? Like, so Canberra's a fantastic place for that, especially because of like the setup of the economic like system in Canberra, and because there's older houses and people want them to be like renovated up. So she's right in the middle of like really clever work, but she's done like thousands of houses around Canberra. So I'm in the middle of making this Google Maps list and like taking her paper copies for like past 2 decades.
Wow.
And making it a visual reference, just so people can see like the volume of work that this woman has created is just amazing, you know.
Yeah, that's
I want
so cool.
it later on in my life, so I can drive down Canberra streets just going like, this is all my mum, like she did all of this, you know.
That's fantastic. That's so cool.
Yeah.
It's my, I've got my stepdad was an architect, and I know exactly what you're describing. They've got this connection with this house that they designed. It's kind of part of that. It came from their brain, and now it's something that they thought of is not a living thing, but it's a thing in our world now. Collating that, of everything that she has done since becoming an architect. God, what a gift.
Yeah, like I'm so into it. It's taken me forever. I'm big into data. Like I'm a nerd. But like collating that and getting it onto like, now that we've got these visual references and stuff, like it's a beautiful thing to look at. I've got similar maps from like all my travels from jiu-jitsu and AGIG events and where all the AGIG women are and stuff. And I really like having that visual reference for like your work and your impact and your journey, you know.
Very cool. Very cool. So tell us about growing up with your siblings. So where were you in the pecking order?
I'm the baby sister, so yeah, I don't know whether that affects your personality in a big way or whatever, but I definitely, so my brother and sister are quite close in age, and we're only a year apart from each other at school, and then there's like a bit of a gap, and then there's me. So I've always looked up to them. Like, you couldn't have rosier glasses about two people than I have about those two people, you know. I've just always thought they're the most talented, most beautiful, most impressive. Like, yeah, that's how I think about them, and just kind of always been trying to tag along, you know. Like when they used to go across Dryandra Street to like a pool up the road, you know, like they were old enough, and like mum would find me crawling across like main intersections trying to chase them, you know. And I feel like probably that theme has continued in my lifetime. My brother was an epic athlete in our youth, great musician, but it was his athletic side that I found like crazy impressive, because it just seemed impossible to me, you know. And my sister too, she's now an epic athlete and has been competing at the Arnold Sports Festival and stuff for strong woman, strong man, you know. And so like, yeah, I've just always looked up to them. They're incredible people. My brother's a avid ice hockey player and fan, and has his own podcast for ice hockey and stuff. So like, yeah, cool. Just they're easy to look up to, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. What a proud family. We're all, I know what I mean. They're all doing so well, and mum's doing well, and they all like each other. What more could you ask for? That's fantastic.
Well, not all. Like, there's some aspects of my family. Like, obviously, dad's not in there, you know. Like, so there's not like everything's perfect, but us as a core is pretty rock solid. Yeah.
That's so good. That's really cool. So tell us about Jess as a child growing up. Were you a bit of a rebel? Were you a bit of a nerd at school?
No, I suffered words like bossy and I don't know, loud and pig-headed and all that kind of stuff, which could have been framed in leader and confident and all that kind of stuff. It wasn't.
Yeah, right.
Not from my household, but from outside our household. Yeah, and I look back at that stuff, and I think that you couldn't really win. Like, if you were a quiet, shy kid, you know, you got hassled and bullied. If you were brave and bold or whatever, you got like dragged down. There was like this kind of desperate need to homogenize? I don't know whether that's the right word, but to like water everybody down, you know, keep them in the box. And yeah, that was pretty much my experience. I wasn't a rebel or anything. I was like part of a pretty feisty group of girls at school that didn't really give shits about what people thought. Yeah, I don't know. Like, I like definitely, mum, we weren't well off, right? Like, it was impossible to be well off in those circumstances. And mum gave us all the freedom in the world, but no money, you know? And so there was a limit to like what you could do. Like, you couldn't socially go to certain things because you didn't have any money. Like, it just wasn't there.
Yeah.
And so that like kind of guided your involvement in things. It definitely guided me away from like, there was a really like sketchy path in my teen years of heroin in Canberra, and I couldn't afford it. You know, that's awful, but like, it's really good. Like, there was a really, really, really bad era in Canberra for drugs, kids, that I don't know whether many people outside of Canberra would have known about. Like, in the 90s, it was gross, you know, and there was this kind of like, there was major problems. I had a lot of friends on the drug, and I lost a lot of friends even by year 10, you know. Wow. So like, I wasn't really interested in that. I knew I couldn't go down that path. I was also too vain to go down that path, which kind of saved my life. Well, no, did save my life, but I wanted to be doing things. Like, I wanted to be learning how to skateboard and stuff, you know. Like, so for me, I guess like a socioeconomic kind of thing like guided my direction and who I was in my youth. Like, basically I was trying to learn to play bass guitar very badly, and skateboard because it was free and there was cool guys down the park and there was great parks in Canberra. And that kind of definitely influenced who I was and what kind of childhood and teenhood I could have.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's fascinating where, you know, there was this problem, this heroin problem that you're talking about. I love how you're like, I couldn't afford to get into that. Like, as in maybe the socioeconomics sort of saved me away from falling down that.
Yeah, and I wasn't willing to be a thief, right? Like, so one thing for me that it's definitely in the last 3 months with the situation that we're in, give me a lot of time to reflect and look at, you know, what drives me and stuff, and just rewriting things like the mission statements for Australian Girls in Gi, and really looking at what my core values for the business are and thinking about that in that framework, and just starting to think about like, what are my core values, you know, like, and I mean, I'm jumping around a little bit, but like, I teach a really incredible group of Muslim women, right? And so I'm learning a lot about Muslim faith and Turkish culture, and like a heap that I knew nothing about. And religion really like confuses me because it's not something I have as a priority at all in my life, you know? Like, if I was to list the things that I feel like I need to get through a day, that's not even on the list, you know? Like, so I like all of these things kind of circle in my head a lot because I've had a lot of time alone since COVID hit. And just thinking about what is my core value. Like, if I sat down with somebody that like has Muslim faith as like their primary core, like then it becomes part of the whole framework, the whole lens that they see the world, you know, and changes their decision-making process down to every little thing. And I realized that for me, the biggest thing, like the thing that makes me make every decision in my life has been integrity and a sense of justice. It's been like, that's such an unwavering thing. Like, to me, if you took that off me, I just couldn't live, you know? Like, so, and looking at, that's how other people feel about their faith. I find that really interesting. And so like, even going back, like when I take my 40-year-old brain and I look at those times back in my youth, I just think it was even there. It was there then as well. I never wanted to do anything that my mum would be embarrassed or ashamed by, ever. Yeah. It was like, if I couldn't look her in the eye and say, oh, this is what I did, I couldn't, you know, like, it's not a possibility for me. So, you know, like, yes, my socioeconomic like setup meant that I wasn't going to get into like hard drugs in that situation. It just, there was a lot going on, but I think that like the person that I am now was kind of already established. And
absolutely,
things, you know.
No, that makes sense. You know, this all a person has is their integrity, right? And it sounds like you discovered yours at a much younger age than most of us do. You know, we're an adult or we get slapped in the face, you know, through a societal situation or whatnot. But yeah, no, I completely get that, because as soon as you lose your integrity, I think you lose everything. You know what I mean? And
everything.
Yeah. So no, that's a really, really cool insight. And so around this time, were you playing any sports while you were a kid?
Just skating, you know, like I really tried. I played, oh no, that's a lie. Crikey, things you forget. I played netball, you know,
Yeah.
but me and my best friend at the time, I was goal defense and she was goalkeeper, and we got fouled a lot. Like, we really enjoyed the physicality and like just kind of sneaking in like a hip bump or like dragging someone down by their bib, you know, like we were awful, but like if somebody had to just put me in a martial arts class, I would have been all right, you know. Like, I did a lot of gymnastics. I flipped around in our basement a lot. Mum like made up our basement into like a rumpus room and just filled it with mattresses and stuff, and I just would flip and a bit of sport, but nothing too formal. I got right into snowboarding when it arrived in the world.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
I would have been the first wave of snowboarders. Like, you know, we were, skiers hated us and all this kind of stuff. I'm sure they still do, but yeah, I was more into that kind of thing, like sports that were a bit self-led, I guess.
Yeah, sure.
And snowboarding. Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
Like snowboarding. Yeah.
and so that's around your teenage years. So your high school years, you get into your snowboarding.
Yeah. So
And how do you fall into that?
how did I fall into it?
Well, how do you get into it? Excuse me.
How did I? I had a very well-off friend that had a family that had shares in, I think it's, so at the back of Thredbo, there's another ski field that you have
Like,
to.
is that Jindabyne? No.
No,
I'm not sure.
I can't even remember. People will know that are listening to this, but one of my good friends at the back of Thredbo, there's another ski resort that you can get to that's very private, very exclusive, and you can only get there by snowmobile.
Yeah, cool.
And so I think we went up there or something. I can't really remember, but yeah, it started there because she was snowboarding, and I got like crazy into it. Like, I worked down at the O'Connor shops. Before it was IGA, it was Owl Food Barn on the other side of the shops, and that was my first job. And I worked there and would like save up money, and so from 13 onwards, every third week I'd take myself down the snow and just like be on the ski fields non-stop, you know. And by year 9 I was coaching the Marici College women's snowboarding team down the snow as much as I could. And then by year 11, I pretty much set up the framework for exactly what Australian Girls in Gi is now, but for snowboarding. I wanted to teach women. I wanted to run camps. I wanted to like film them, get them doing aerials. Like, I could see that there was the beginning of something incredible, and that if we invested in women, like, why wouldn't Australia be known for women snowboarding? Like, nobody was known for women snowboarding yet. Like, why not just go hard into it? And then I broke my ankle, and, you know, so like, yeah, career changing kind of injury time. But I was definitely doing the initial like fits and starts of what later became Australian Girls in Gi.
Yeah. Well, look, snowboarding is pretty popular now, and as is a competition or the rivalry between, you know, snowboarders and skiers. But what get into some specifics for us, Jess, with regards to this snowboarding. What exactly, what was the sport? You know, what is a training session like? What are you actually getting better at? You know, is it faster? Is it tricks? That sort of stuff.
Okay. So I was right into border cross, which is essentially like a track, same as like motocross, I guess. I don't know.
Okay.
An equivalent. But it's track. Usually there's 4 people on the track and you're racing. So it's just against the other 4 people, and it's just awesome. It's like kind of combination between not the park so much, and not really aerials. I wasn't really able to do that. That's how I broke my ankle.
Yeah, right.
More the like just go real fast, which echoed for me skateboarding in Canberra. So I lived at the top of Diana Street, which is up Black Mountain, which is kind of a big hill. So I'd skate down into the city, right? And you'd just be like essentially slaloming, skateboarding down the hills into Canberra City, and I just loved going real fast sideways.
Right.
You know? Yeah.
Okay. That's cool. I mean, when you said you could only get to the place by snowmobile, I can't get this James Bond image out of my head.
Yeah.
It sounds so cool. Private place to train. And were there many girls into snowboarding when you were kicking off?
Look, there was nobody into snowboarding when I was kicking off. So it looked like a clean slate. Like it could be anything. We just had to choose it. And I look at jiu-jitsu in Australia kind of in the same way. Fair enough, I came to it 10 years after it started in Australia, but like once I started jiu-jitsu, look at that going, why can't it be 50-50? Like, why couldn't it be? Like, just makes sense to me. Like, why couldn't it be 80-30 the other way around? It makes literally no sense to me that it's not. Like, I often point to CrossFit and go, somebody walked into a gym and was like, cool, let's just make this other sport. And it wasn't gender-based, you know?
Yeah. Well, it's a very young age to have these quite profound thoughts about gender and gender equality. Can you just talk us through how snowboarding, because I did hear you talk about this on YouTube with regards to you wanted to do a similar thing to Girls in Gear with snowboarding. How does a 14-year-old get to that thought? What did you see and where did you want it to get to? What was the vision?
I guess for me, I've always had that sense of like, I think some people want to climb a mountain, want to conquer a goal in that way, to be able to, well, I don't really know. I don't talk to that many people that like go up like, I don't know, Kilimanjaro or whatever.
Something crazy. Yeah.
But like, I think that part of us as humans that wants to be able to say, for the rest of their lives, I did that thing. And that's not changeable, you know, it's locked in history.
Yeah.
I always had that, like, that feeling to do something like that. Like, I remember like having really strong urges to buy a bicycle and ride across Australia and just like things like that. Like, there's things that I want to be able to say I did, or like, and what I know as an adult that like helps other people achieve goals is it's a sense of achievement, right? So I was very into snowboarding. I loved it. I didn't really see any careers in front of me that I wanted, and I didn't want to, like, I mean, and I say just, but like, I didn't want to be just a cog in the wheel. I wanted to be in the snow all the time and be a part of it.
Yeah.
But I didn't want to be just a lifty. Even though that's a really cool job, like great lifestyle, cool, do it, you know. I wanted to be influencing or supporting the people that were going to do it, like, while still being in it myself. It wasn't, I don't know, I couldn't see the role that I needed, so I wanted to create it for myself, and I didn't want to just be an employee, I guess, is the way to best sum it up. So, like, I had to be like imaginative and come up with something, and what I came up with was a space in the market that didn't exist. I don't think anybody's still done it. And that's what I wanted to do. Like, I guess the framework's got to come from mum, right? Like, she created a design company in Canberra that wasn't on offer, wasn't available, you know, she did it off her own back, and it wasn't like she grew into the career making partner or whatever. Like, it was hers. She created it, and I watched that from first years of primary school, you know.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds very, very entrepreneurial.
Yeah,
if I'm saying that word correctly.
I understand.
You sort of see a gap. You know, it sounds like you're an entrepreneur. You also have this desire that you want to leave a legacy. That's probably not a good way to sort of describe it, but you want to create something, right? And when you combine those two things together, you get exactly what you do. What strikes me is that it happened at such a young age. When I was 14, I was saving up for a pair of board shorts. You know what I mean? And you're creating legacies. It's just super interesting.
Wanting to like, wanting to feel important and seen and valuable. Definitely.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. And then you try out your hand at some other snowboarding event and smash your ankle. And that's the dream. That's it.
Yeah, it was a bad one. So yeah, that changed the path completely. I had to get a job to pay for the surgery that I had.
Wow.
To get through that, which really sucked, So I was quite young. I was 19, and that really took me on a new path. And I worked at Casino Canberra for more years than I wanted to.
There you go.
But the same, like on the other side of that, like, so even within working at Casino Canberra, like I became the person that was organising like the ski trips for the team and all that kind of stuff. Like, so always organising, facilitating the group, and really, like, when I unpack it now, all of those maternal urges, those like kind of nest fluffing urges that I guess most people would have around children, I've always had around humans and community.
Okay. There, yeah, that's really brought it home for me. That really makes a lot of sense. An entrepreneur, leave a legacy, but supporting the community. When you combine those three things together, yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's only these couple of years, that I've worked it out and worked out what I was actually doing and got to know myself a little bit better and understood it a bit more.
That's really cool. So let's so you're doing this snowboarding. You finish high school, you still haven't had your injury yet, and the dream is to continue in this snow career into the future.
Yeah.
And then you have your accident.
Mm-hmm.
What's the future look like for Jess? What's the direction you're going to go from there?
That was a bad time. That was a lot of weight gain, depression. Yeah, like that was a bad time.
Yeah.
And good relationship gone bad because of all of my mental health issues at that time. I tried my hand at buying houses, did all that kind of stuff, and hated it so much that, like, I got on a plane and I went to England for a couple of years and just escaped into music and partying and like hedonism on a level that needs to be done that far away from your friends and family. Yeah. So no one sees it and remembers it, like, and loved it. Like, it changed me completely as a person, and opened my eyes to like just a different way to live and be. And yeah. And when I got back from that, so all of my friends, when I was over there, like I lived in like the coolest houses, like houses with like 38 people in one building. Wow. And just really fun, like crazy great fun to spend like your 20s doing. The whole time I was there, like I was living with this big group of people that were from Melbourne, and I just thought that was so slick and cool with their leather jackets and shit, like I just had my polar fleece from Kathmandu, and there's only one place to shop in Canberra, so like they kept paying me out because I was from Canberra. So when all our visas ran out and we went back to Australia, I went to Melbourne to go and live near them, but of course they weren't from Melbourne. They were from Mornington, and Mornington is not Melbourne. And when I saw it, I was like, you guys have been paying me out for years for being from Canberra. I tell you what, it's more cosmopolitan than bloody Mornington.
Yeah.
So they were still down there, and they're still there now, like, and I do still see them, but I wanted something more city vibe like London. So I ended up in Melbourne and then started,
Okay, cool.
training and stuff.
Yeah. So how long did you spend abroad?
I was gone for, I think, almost 3.5 years, 2.5 years being in England.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
And you came back, you moved to Melbourne, and then what's the plan from there?
What was the plan? I got pretty sick of the party life. I didn't want to do the party life in Australia. It didn't feel right. It felt like a holiday thing. And so I started, because I'd lost a lot of weight. When I flew to London, I was 86 kilos. And when I flew back, I was 60 kilos. And so like, my sister talks about that time, like when I got back, it was like somebody had been in a prison cell writing on the cell walls, like what they were going to do when they got out of the bat suit, like out of the cell. And so when I got back, I was like, Monday night was like Krav Maga, Tuesday night was fire twirling, Wednesday night was Corde de Lice at the circus place. Like, I was just nuts, like literally nuts, doing everything. And I guess the energy that I like was putting into partying overseas, I just had all this like energy to just bounce around and do everything, Melbourne, and that it was on offer. Like, I was living in Paran, and I'd go to like pole dancing because that was up the road, and then there was just heaps of stuff. Like there's the national like circus school there, and it's just fun, like Melbourne was awesome, just great thing to do. Yeah.
And what were you doing to pay the bills at this time?
Accounts. I was in accounts receivable and accounts payable for a very long time. Full desk all day, every day.
Okay, and then just doing these a full spectrum of activities after hours, just really burning this energy off.
Yeah.
What are some of the
after work? Like manic. I had a lot of energy, I'd run 10Ks from Paran to Coburg to go to Krav Maga, smoke a ciggy, go upstairs, train 2 hours, get back downstairs, smoke another ciggy, get on the tram, do my homework. Madness.
Wow. And you mentioned some pretty cool things there. So Krav Maga, talk to us about your Krav Maga experience.
I was in Krav Maga for almost 5 years, and I was an instructor of that, pretty quickly, like you can be, depending on the standard set for the gym. That I think Krav Maga's probably changed in the last 10 years. I don't know. I've been out of it for 10 years, but 15 years ago, we were kind of the crest of the wave and could set the standard that we wanted to and create, schools and like programs and stuff in the way that we wanted to. I really enjoyed it. It was perfect for me because like it was really aggressive and combative, and I was just allowed to cut sick basically. It's being a non-army person, it's like all you kind of like fantasies about just bashing someone with a stick and getting into a fight, like it's kind of crazy. But
I've never done Krav Maga, but it seems like it's like, hey, this is a martial arts minus the arts. You know what I mean? It is just go for the throat, go for the groin. Next person, throat, groin, throat, groin.
Yeah, and like honestly, I mean, I don't really love the technique or the style. Like obviously, I'm in a different arena now, but like for me, the drills were just so fun, as a civilian.
Yeah.
Because you play fighting really, like you have to pay strikes because, I don't know, they tell you that if we actually did this, they're too deadly, which I know is not real now, but like at the time I thought it was real. And you kind of come in with your like office worker rage, and like one of the drills for the night is, okay, you need to get from this end of the room to that end of the room, go downstairs to the bathroom, flush the toilet and get back without getting stabbed. And it's like,
whoa.
Like it's
fun.
so much fun. Like just people just popping out of nowhere, it's like laser tag, but you get to just punch someone in the face.
You're right. That would be fun. It's in a safe environment. You know what I mean? Just go. Yeah, that's cool.
I loved it. But then, I had friends that I'm like, you got to come along to Krav Maga and try it. And I'd be like this, like, how cool is this? And they're like cowering in the corner, like, you guys are psycho.
Yeah.
Like,
no, Monday stabby night. You got to come along. You might get stabbed going to the toilet. They're just like, who? Jess, what are you saying? That'd be awesome. I'm all in.
Like, the rush of that is so much fun.
Yeah, that's really cool. And you said a couple other things. You said pole dancing, the circus stuff. You said fire twirling. What are some of the cool ones that people wouldn't necessarily associate you with?
I guess that's all of them.
Okay.
Fire twirling. I used to perform like in nightclubs and stuff.
Really?
Yep.
That's cool.
Yeah, I did. It's probably bad to say, but I did one performance. I was hired for a performance in Richmond, which is funny because it's right near where the gym is, and I walk past it all the time and think about it. But I was to perform on the roof of the building, right? Because it was this opening of this thing, and the police helicopters came because I was on the roof of this thing performing with fire.
Oh my goodness.
So,
did you have the pole or did you use the twirly?
Yeah, I used poi. I was always poi.
Wow. And
yeah.
I mean, if you were to do it now, do you still remember it? Do you still have that muscle memory?
Yeah, I do. And like, it's like, I do. And I've played with it. I don't cause you can do it with like lights and stuff.
Yeah.
I have done it a bunch of times, at family events or whatever recently, but yeah, like the funny thing about it is because of that, I worked out how to do a berimbolo. So
Oh man.
there's a direction change, like, so there's a circular movement, right? And the direction change is relative to your position at the spiral, right? So we're both looking at a spiral going a different way right now, you and I.
Yeah.
Right? Counterclockwise, clockwise, and it's just about where you are in relation to that spin. So that's how poi performance works and how you can change directions in poi, and that's how I understood.
That is so cool. Jess, you are a modern day like Mr. Miyagi. You know what I mean? It's not wax on, wax off. It's no, we're going to spin the fire. Right, here we go. Now let's do some jiu-jitsu. That's so cool.
Funny. I tried to explain that to a student just recently. And I can tell when I've gone way too far deep, you know, and they're just like looking at you like, oh my God, do I have to agree with her? I should just agree with her because I don't know what she's talking about.
She said something about setting me on fire. So I don't know. I'm just going to keep nodding. Oh, that's really cool. That's really cool. Okay. So you're doing all these activities and then when does this start going towards your discovery of jiu-jitsu?
Oh, so I feel like jiu-jitsu found me completely.
Yeah, okay.
When I was doing my Krav Maga, so like I kind of stripped away a bunch of the activities that I was doing just to Krav Maga and yoga. So I became a yoga teacher in 2016. I got my qualifications after doing like 2 years full time, and I was kind of like yoga and Krav Maga, like these two things make me like calm and like zen, but also fighty and yada yada. And like really, that's jiu-jitsu, right? Like if you put those two things together,
it really is
like a relaxed weapon, basically. So like, yeah, I was teaching in Little Bourke Street. I was teaching yoga at Mind Over Muscle or something it was called, in a studio there on the 3rd floor, and it literally looks across the alleyway at ground zero. So
wow,
I saw it before I knew what it was. And my ultra competitive brain saw the two women in the sea of men and was like, I reckon I could take it. And I couldn't. You know, but that's sort of how I discovered it. I have been jiu-jitsu'd at some training events in Thailand when I went over for Krav Maga training events, and I had that great experience that like I really enjoy handing back on to people of like being choked by a little dude, thinking that like he's like only little, you know, like that magic of feeling jiu-jitsu just completely overwhelm you and not knowing what's going on. And I'm so grateful to that guy for choking me, you know, because that moment is, you can't understand jiu-jitsu until you felt like completely helpless. And I think that as soon as that happens, and if your ego setting is in the right direction, like too inquisitive, you're hooked for life. Those people convert people to jiu-jitsu people, right? Like, and I really enjoy being one of those people. Like, you know, you can complain all you want about being small on the mat, but the cool thing about being small on the mat is I'm that magician. Every dude that I choke out for the first time, I'm converting to jiu-jitsu, unless his ego is set to, nah, I don't want to know, you know, like, but like I saw a magician on something, I don't know, and he was talking about how there's two distinct groups of people once he does a magic trick. The ones that want to know exactly how it was done, and the ones that really like, don't tell me, I want it to be magic. And I think the ones that want to know how it was done are all our jiu-jitsu people.
Yeah, absolutely. The ego is such a huge part of it. The other one is after you choke them out, they start finding the excuses. You know what I mean? You're fresh, aren't you? You're fresh, or something crazy like that. But
yeah, I love that, and I love to remember those things. Like I wish I had even better recall to remind guys of and girls of what they say to me. You know, like some of the most, you know, innocent, out of context, crazy stuff gets said to you on the mat, and like, and it's really nice at this end of the experience level to just kind of witness it and go, oh, wow, like you're really freaking out, aren't you? Or like you can see their eyes light up and they're just having the best time and in love with things straight away.
Yeah. Well, talk us through your journey. So you see this jiu-jitsu, you see these girls, you're like, I could beat them, and you how do you get into it?
I think about it a long time, you know, like I do the same thing as, I think there's like some like really set data on how many times people approach a new like sport or interest, and it's like 7. It's meant to be something like 7, where you look it up online, you talk to your friends about it, like I'm counting here, talk to your friends about it, then you like look up like maybe somewhere in your area, then, you know, like there's kind of 7 points. And it took me quite a long time. And I was leaving after coaching one night, or teaching yoga, and came downstairs, and there was like 3 massive dudes standing up in front of ground zero with their bags and stuff. And I was like, hey, do you guys train there? And one of them wouldn't speak to me at all.
Yeah.
And he's now one of my best friends. The other one like kind of stayed silent, who he's now my coach and, you know, like my best friend, and has been like one of the biggest influences on my life. And the other one is also a long-term friend. Obviously these people have been in my lives forever now. His name's Chad, and like just big gentle giant. And Chad is now like, or has been for 10 years, like one of my biggest supporters, always at my events, always supporting me, always like following up on how I've gone, you know, and just been there forever. Anyway, so Chad said, oh, it's, we train upstairs and you should go and speak to Rob. And yeah, that was pretty much it. So those 3 guys are Vanguard. They're like 2 of them are the owners of Vanguard.
Yeah, right. Okay,
yeah.
That's really cool.
That's under me now at Vanguard as well.
There you go.
Cool. Yeah.
That's cool. I love stories like that. It's a real dose of serendipity, you know, and just these occurrences in life which you wouldn't believe, and then just continue on. You know, it's the start of an amazing friendship.
Yeah.
And were you so you were you hooked from the start, or was it a slow burn?
I think everyone from my generation at some point trained at ground zero, right? Like yourself included,
Yeah.
And it wasn't like the era. It wasn't the era that Rob came through, where it was like totally just dudes just bashing each other in like, you know, a concrete box. But it was somewhere between that and what we have now. So it was kind of like the Wild West. Like it really, like for our grades, Rob would call a ring of death, which was a circle of people sat in a circle. I don't know whether you ever experienced one of these, but I experienced a few. You sat in a circle and he put a blue belt in the middle of the circle. And if you were a 4-stripe white belt and the other person was a 4-stripe white belt, you guys would literally fight for the belt.
Wow.
Fight for the belt. Like, you know, like it sucked when you had 4 stripes on your belt. You're like, I don't actually want my blue. Like, and you come to class and you're like, I'm going to get bashed by some dude that really wants his blue way. So like, that was my introduction to jiu-jitsu.
Wow.
And I guess like, so it was upstairs, right? I think there was a lift, but you'd get paid out if you called the lift up. But yeah, like I went the first time and I had no idea what was going on, like everybody. I was totally out of my depth. My ego was like literally on fire, and, you know, kind of just experiencing not the cognitive thought of don't you know who I am, but physically experiencing that, you know what I mean? Like, I came from like really high level Krav Maga, where I was the instructor and I kind of was somebody in my scene, to being like, but you don't understand. Like being unannounced with someone going, but you don't understand. I shouldn't be here. Like I'm better than this, you know? Like so definitely my ego, like, and I think everybody's ego is important in that time where you're like, I will not let this beat me. Like I will not let this beat me. I can't, you know? And so I would come back more to fulfill that need than wanting to go back. Like I wasn't like hooked, like, yes, I was like, I needed to finish the puzzle. I was that person that had like, you know, the puzzle. And if you've got 1,000 pieces, as you get near the end, you need those other 3. Like there can't be 3 missing. There's not allowed to be 3 missing, you know?
Yeah.
Like, I need to complete this thing. So that was more my feeling. I would have anxiety attacks, full panic attacks, walking up the stairs almost every class for a very long time, and would like get pretty emotional. So it took me a really long time to be able to even speak at class, because I was holding in a panic attack the whole time. I couldn't actually hear people. I couldn't hear instruction. I couldn't retain instruction. I was just out the gate, you know. But I think that experience like allows me to, as a coach, when I come around and look at people and all of a sudden they're doing really shit jiu-jitsu and they're like, it was better before. I'm like, I believe you. Like, I know you can do this. You don't have to perform for me because you are in an adrenal state and, you know, anything could be happening. You're deep in your CNS at that point.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not talking to a human, and that's cool. Like, I see that and I don't judge it, you know, like I just wait for it to pass. And, you know, I was lucky enough that there was a bunch of guys there that recognized that that's what I was like, and they just didn't try to push, you know, like they just let me do my thing. And I think it took me about a year or so before I even started speaking on the mats or asking a question or whatever, you know.
And are you someone through your life, Jess, that had a role model or looked up to someone or were inspired by other people, or is that something that sort of comes from inside of you?
Looking up to people as mentors, or
just like, you know, so like, you know, people are inspired when they see martial arts movies or someone who's a great orator or a great leader or something like that. A lot of your motivation seem to come from inside.
Yeah and no. They look like they're from inside.
Like, I mean, you seem very self-driven as opposed to motivated by others.
Yes. Well, yeah, and this is what, like, yes and no, right? Like, so I think that sense of wanting to like achieve something, create history, be bigger than I thought I could be, that kind of stuff, colliding with definitely like somebody that doesn't get enough credit in my journey is Martin Gonzalez. And like, I met him very early on, like obviously the first person I met at ground zero, even before the coach, you know, like he quickly became one of my best mates and we became very close, like for a really long time. And for me, trying to impress that guy, like not on like a romantic level or whatever, but just trying to impress him, because I find him like, I put him on the same pedestal as I put my siblings, you know, like I think that he is a legit genius. I think that his core values align with mine, and his sensibility and his outlook on sport and what hard work is really aligned with mine, you know. And so like from the moment I met him, just trying to do something that would impress him, like it's been so motivational. And if you've met the guy, it's almost impossible to impress him. Like having an impossible hoop for me has been like fantastic, you know, like it's like, I don't know, you got to find your style and who can translate this sport for you. Like it's such a huge sport, and we can like, people can get into saying, no, that coach is shit, or that student shit, or that person's good, or that person's the best, or whatever. It's all subjective, you know, like you just got to find your interpreter, somebody that plugs like right into the gaps for your brain and switches you on. And 100% Martin is that person. And you know, I think he enjoys the challenge of taking some, like, the odd bods and proving how good he is at jiu-jitsu by creating exceptional athletes out of, like, 30-year-old ladies. Like, yeah, I think it was fun for him to go, like, I can be as good as the next guy. Like, I can try to, like, you know, win comps or whatever, but, like, and I think John alluded to this as well. No, he was quite overt about it in his interview. Is like, cool, like I can make like champions, but what about the people that weren't meant to be champions? You know, I really think that collaboration between Marty and I has been incredible. You know, and to have that rock behind me, I've just been cool, and then I can take all my community stuff and I can go with that energy and give it to others as well. You know.
Yeah, no, that's really cool. And you're right. John really did speak about that. What was his quote? You know, if you're training for 12 hours a day, 5 days a week, you know, why aren't you a champion? You know what I mean? It's the people that shouldn't be the champions. That's when you get the most out of getting those guys and girls to advance. So it's absolutely something that I can definitely recognize. No, that's really cool. And so what happens next with your BJJ? So talk us through you're up there, it's in your face, you gain your confidence after about a year. How does your belt progression go from there? And when are you like, yes, this is what I do now?
So when I came to jiu-jitsu, I really wanted to do MMA, and I wanted to do MMA for the wrong reasons. I saw a shallow pool for women, and I figured I could raise to the top of that pool pretty quickly because my value set was different then, like I looked at jiu-jitsu, like you hear about jiu-jitsu when you haven't done a style that takes that long to get proficient at, right? And you're like, 10 years for a black belt, like fuck that shit, like
Yeah.
I want to be good now, like, and so I was in that mindset of wanting everything now and wanting everything fast, and I figured incorrectly that I could transfer my skills from Krav Maga into MMA like that like there's probably no women that are like that good at striking. Like I was delusional. Like I didn't know the framework of martial arts. I didn't know anything. I just got good at Krav Maga quick. I got good at like fire twirling quick. I got good at pole dancing quick, and I thought everything was going to come to me easily and well. I just thought I was a coordinated, gifted person, and like I just hadn't found like a sport with depth yet, like, so I wanted to do MMA. Marty and I sat down and made a plan for that. And he was like, cool, like you can't train MMA, like, because at the time you couldn't, you can now. Yeah. We're talking a decade ago, like, so he was like, if you train MMA, it's going to slow you down. We need you to do 18 months of just pure jiu-jitsu and then do 18 months of striking, and then we'll meld them together. In 3 years time, you'll be, I think it was, like in 3 years time, I would be like 34, 33, 34 at that stage.
Yeah.
Have 2 years of career of MMA, retire, become a coach, whatever. So that was the plan, right? And then 18 months into jiu-jitsu, I'd already won all 4 gold at Pan Pacs at white belt. I'd already come second at the 80cc trials in my first week of being a blue belt. I'd already won the Abu Dhabi trials in New Zealand, and I was in Abu Dhabi standing on the podium with a bronze medal in the open weight of blue belt 18 months into my journey, So I kind of like went, like looked at the medal and was like, probably should just do jiu-jitsu, like seems to be a path, And
yeah.
So that was it. Like it was, a lot of it was based on timelines for me because I started jiu-jitsu at 30. It was like, well, what are you going to get? Are you going to, like, what do you value, And it was like, I had to make the decision at the time. Do you want like 2 years as an MMA career, or do you want to compete at black belt and potentially like make some history as a female athlete in this sport nationally, internationally,
Yeah.
Like, so yeah, I chose jiu-jitsu.
That's really cool. And I mean, that's a fast progression. I think you're onto something there. You sort of, you're a quick learner and you kind of apply things very quickly. That's really cool. And then when does girls in gi then become this thing that you start to be the driving force behind?
I created it in my first year of jiu-jitsu.
Okay.
Yeah. And like, I'm a firm believer in, like right now you and I are talking about like all the like landmarks of my career, but when you're going through them, you don't realize that they're landmarks. Like I was listening to John and I'm like, there's no way he thought those moments were going to be ye olde tales of the history of jiu-jitsu in Australia when he was living them, and there's no way that I thought that at the time with Australian Girls in Gi, but like I'm very much of the school of thought that everybody is already a black belt. They just have to come to fruition, and that we should honor and respect their journeys all because they're on their way. I talk to people that I'm just waiting for you to come to me, like, because I was that, like, you could see me as just another blue belt in the crowd when I was a blue belt. But like, honestly, what I've done for jiu-jitsu in the community has been massive, and you can't pick that starting off, like just foster everybody's energy and hope that incredible things come, like, so when I started Australian Girls in Gi, it was literally as a knee-jerk reaction to being told that I couldn't train with other women from other gyms. That's it. Real simple, like needs and outcomes, problem, solution. That's it, you know?
Yeah.
But then, of course, other women start coming to me with that problem, wanting a solution. And then I'm capable. I can provide that, you know? Like, so it started out really straightforward. And then later on became something much, much bigger as I developed as a human as well, which is what we hope martial arts does, right? Like, is to like develop your character and like change you for the better. And I definitely, like learned a lot about what it is to be a feminist, you know? Like I'd never even heard the word, I'd never even realized, like, oh, I'm not very highly educated, you know? Like I'm like more life experience person, but I thought lesbian and feminist were the same thing. And like, sure they can be, but I didn't know, you know? And it took one of my best friends to tell me I was a feminist, which was funny. It was like a coming out. She was like, you know, you run the largest feminist organization in the world for jiu-jitsu, right? And I was like, what? No. Like,
what are you talking about?
And so like, it's been a lot of growth and education for me, and like new directions for AGIG, and sometimes it's gone like in weird directions and had to be pulled back, and sometimes it hasn't gone far enough, and like, I mean, no one's done it before me, you know, so I just have to work it out, like yeah, and try to do my best with integrity, and that's been my only unwavering guide, you know.
You started it at such a young experience age, if you will. You know, you started out after a year of training. Surely that had to be intimidating, because there's girls around that have been training for a lot longer than you.
Yeah, there was, but at the time, so Carmen Jenke, she was a brown belt. She came to my second event. She had done, like, she was training out of Ground Zero way back in the day. And so she had done a thing called ground control or something. She had the tattoo on her leg, I remember that. But she did have a massive women's team of about 30 women, well before I started jiu-jitsu. So that's kind of history books, you know, when Stacey Cartwright was around and was in Melbourne, and she came second at ADCC, which is like the highest achievement for an Australian woman at ADCC, you know. Like, so there was an era then that there was quite a lot of women around, and it disbanded. It just wasn't fostered in the greatest way. And I think that she got exhausted, you know, like, and I think that there was a couple of women around that just ended up exhausted by it. And truth be told, like, I've gone through phases of that too. There is like a mountain of hellish behaviors to wade through in this sport. And I think that even more so as a woman that like I need like an unsolicited advice shield sometimes, you know, or an unsolicited comments or whatever it is, or opinion shield. It can be really heavy going. And I think that if I had have known the work that was involved, I might not have taken it on, but I went in naively, you know. I just was like, let's all just roll, because I'd never experienced politics. I'd never understood it. It was just like, we just roll, right? This is the coolest thing you could do with your time. Can't we just do it? Like, it just is like a teenager finding sex. Like, can't you just do it? Like, what's the problem? You know, like, it's just, I couldn't understand why I couldn't roll with everyone. And what's the problem? Like, so I just did it anyway. And now looking back, I see how many people would have been totally pissed off by that. But whatever, like, they didn't have to come. They didn't have to be involved. The cool thing is that I flew under the radar because of gender. So though gender has like a whole bunch of issues within sport, it also kind of gave me a hall pass to do a lot, you know? Like, so there's definitely things about it that have been privileged, and there's things about it that have been like really bad, you know? So, but I see both.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
And it almost sounds like when when you started it, you almost didn't realize what you were starting. You know what I mean? And
Absolutely not.
and yeah, and it seems like as it's grown, it's put more and more responsibilities on your shoulders. And
Yeah.
it's just because coming from an outsider's perspective, who didn't know about it when it started, who's only read about it recently, it is an institution. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it is something that you should be absolutely proud of.
I really.
But it certainly isn't something that you were describing that you started off as. And it's just amazing the growth that this has had from you. I love it. I just wanted to roll with other girls. And it's
pretty
just,
simple.
yeah, it's amazing achievement. And I wanted to ask about this word feminist that you brought up before. And I saw that you do wear a feminist badge on your gi.
Yes.
Or certainly the one I saw in an interview.
Yeah.
I just want to understand what it means to you to wear this badge.
I kind of like that it is polarizing. That's why I'd wear a patch like that.
Love it.
Mainly because I like to know who I'm dealing with. I think the scariest people I've dealt with in jiu-jitsu wore a mask,
Yeah.
And I know I'm polarizing. Like, I know it. It's part of my ethos. It's part of who I am. But, like, I'd rather us get into a debate about it, or you ask me a question about it, or whatever it is, Like, so feminism for me is equality.
Yeah.
And I cannot separate those two things. I don't put one above the other. And what my goal is, and when I wear a feminist badge, or when I run something like Australian Girls in Gi, is to totally make sure, my goal is to make sure that AGI is redundant. That's the goal.
Yeah.
So I want it to get so big and so I don't know, much a part of our community that I don't have to do it. That's the goal, is equality. So feminism until equality. So if there's an even playing field, and our attendance or our support or our experience or our opportunities is here, and this is the bar, though men aren't the bar. They're not the bar, but just say this is where capacity could be.
Yeah.
This until that. That's it. This movement forward is my feminism. That's it. It's real simple, and I get called out for Australian Girls in Gi being reverse sexism TM, and I'm like, cool, come to the events. I'm not saying that you shouldn't. I'm just saying they're not for you. So come to the events. 2017, I just got for years and years, I got so much stick for Australian Girls in Gi is sexist. I can't support it because it's making a division in the community, yada yada. And it's not, it's just supporting a minority, but people don't understand that kind of dynamic, right? So I created a co-ed, a mixed camp, and not one person bought a ticket for it. So the men didn't want it and the women didn't want it either. My events, my 150 person capacity, 4-day, 3-night, all meals included, all accommodation included, 17 seminars, black belts from all over the world events that involve hiring and chartering a ferry for my attendees and a private beach, they sell out in 3 months. Sell out, gone, waiting list stuff for 150 people, and not one ticket sold for the mixed event. So until that changes, until people can prove to me that they actually want to be involved in a women's event, I'm not going to listen to reverse sexism. I'm just never going to listen to it. I also won't listen to the reverse sexism thing from male coaches that tell me I'm creating a division in the community when they themselves offer women's only classes. I don't offer women's only classes because I don't believe in a division on the mat. What I believe in is creating and fostering an environment that retains women in the sport. And what retains women in the sport is a lot of communication, events and products and merchandise and language that is aimed at them, and a safe space, right? So where women feel vulnerable, we can then step in and help and reassure and put them back on their path. I can also stand there alongside of my 36 other black belt sisters and go, look, we made it. It was fucking tough to get here, but we made it. Here we are. Look at us, So Australian Girls in Gi creates that for people to look at and go, okay, I can stay in this, So that's what it's for, And I know, I absolutely know, because I know my coaches that hadn't coached women before. Completely failed me. They were subpar in their behavior. They were subpar in their support. They were subpar in their understanding. All of that, right? So they just didn't know how to coach a woman before. Now, if I had had a gig to talk to go to, if I had had that support myself, I might have been able to offload some of my emotional baggage and bullshit that I had to go through to get through blue belt, purple belt, whatever, and stay on their mats. But I didn't have that, you know. So we provide a service literally of support to women. That's not saying that the coaches can't, but they also can't provide like that kind of service, you know. Like I know now as a coach of men and women at Vanguard, I know that there's very different difficulties with women on a mat than men, just for what they expect out of you as a person. Like guys are like soldier ants, come in, tell me to do the thing, I'll do the thing, I just want to be better than that guy over there. Like they'll just do the thing until they pass out. They'll do the thing. Women want to know why. They want to know why you made that decision. They want to know why you said it that way. They want to know why that's different for her. And they'll get so far into their head that they'll quit, you know. And a lot of coaches don't want to talk to women about that. So Australian Girls in Gi provides that service. And I know that. I know I picked up the slack for hundreds of coaches around Australia. I know that. My DMs are testament to it, you know. Like,
yeah.
I picked up the slack for many, many people, and those same people call me reverse sexism. It's crazy. Yeah. It's crazy. Yeah. I'm literally retaining finances for them.
People,
like, I retain their members, not mine. They don't pay me. Like,
yeah. I look. I don't want to. I'm not polarizing like Jess Fraser, but what I would recommend is if you don't get what Girls in Gi is about, and you know what, I will never get it because I'm not a girl, but I'm trying to understand it, right? And I think I understand it, right? But if you don't get it and it's confusing, go to the website, read some of the blogs that Jess has written, which I've done. And it just makes sense. You know what I mean? Because you put it in a very eloquent and a very simple manner that just explains, hey, here's what you think that this organization is. Let me explain to you what it is and why it's here and why it's not a competition to you. You know what I mean? If anything, why it's here for you, men, you know, so.
100% there. It's for everybody, you know, like, because it's about equality, and equality is about supporting the minority until there is like equal playing field, you know. Like, I'm not trying to take anything off anybody. By creating an event for women, it literally hasn't taken away. I didn't take the Pampaks and make it female only.
Yeah.
You know, it's still there. Like, the opportunity is still there for everybody. Like, and I also am not stopping anybody from creating another event to add in, you know. Like, it's just an extra opportunity and option for women, and there's a hell of a lot of women that don't want that opportunity, you know. Like, totally fine as well. I've never ever overstepped, you know. People can come to me if they want to be involved, no problem. The big thing that I would say to people is, if you're confused by it, just call me. I've been available for 10 years. If you want to have the conversation, let's have the conversation, you know. I'm keen to educate people on what it is, especially with women. You know, I've got heaps of women that come to AGI after like 5 years of seeing us and like won't come to events, and then they'll come to an event and be like, oh my God, I totally thought you'd just be talking about tampons and shit. No, shut up, roll.
This is a 4-day event. How could we do that for 4 days?
Don't talk to me, roll. You know, like, I think that from the outside, you can think it's one thing, but that's really interesting too, to like unpack what you've projected onto a group of people based on their gender. Like, because legit, if you want to come to my events, like, all the girls will know with camp, right? By the end of camp, they're crying. Sure, no problems. It's not about childbirth. It's because they're so tired from 7 hours of rolling 3 days in a row. On the last day, it's just tears central. We have a bucket of chocolate and we pass it around a circle and go, I'm in my feelings because I'm just so tired, you know? But like, you couldn't do that with the dudes. I do with my guys. I burst into tears from exhaustion in front of them during training camps for sure, and they get it. But like, because my guys have been so supportive and like totally normal about that kind of thing, I provide that for women too, you know? Like, we train hard. Like, we train crazy hard. And I think people assume that that's not what we're doing, that we're sitting around talking. But
yeah. That's awesome. That's awesome. Thank you so much for opening up about all of that. You know what I mean? It is such a fascinating thing. And again, I'm reflecting on your comment where you're like, I just wanted to roll with other girls compared to what you just described then is, gee, what a journey. What a journey, Jess.
Yeah.
It's amazing what you've created. It's amazing what all the girls that are a part of this organization and community are continue to create. And,
Yeah.
it's just, you know, and what is really fascinating is you're saying that, you know, you don't want this to be a forever thing. This is a step to where we need to be in society. This is not a permanent solution, which I think a lot of people need to think about that for a long time, because it's an absolutely profound observation. All right, let's get back to you. Let's get back to you, Jess. Let's talk about your belt. Tell me, I have to understand your progression, and then please, you know, tell us listeners how you got your black belt, what was the setting, who was there, how did it happen, and how did it feel?
Yeah, so I got my belt in August of 2016. So I'm coming up to 4 years now.
Okay.
And I was awarded my belt in Bali. So progression of belts, I got my blue belt in 10 months. That was under Rob Williams.
Yep.
And then I won the Victorian State Championships, all for gold, and all for gold at Pampax that year at blue. So within like a couple of months of getting my blue, and went over to Abu Dhabi and stuff, as I mentioned. So it was fast, sure, but like, at the time I like capped my competitive pool and I was looking at international competition. So it was the year after that I went to Worlds, and I won silver at Worlds in blue belt, after about just over 2 years of training. So, and that was against Monique Elias, who is like one of the greatest black belts of all time. So she's always been in my division. I've been having to chase her. And then what happened? I left ground zero. I went to Absolute. So when Absolute was quite small, and trained under Tiago for a while, I got my purple belt under Tiago, and went to Abu Dhabi twice in my purple belt. The first year I went to Abu Dhabi, it was merged purple to black over there, so the women's team still merged, and I had to fight the black belts, and I fought Mackenzie Dern in my first round, which was amazing. Then did another Abu Dhabi in purple belt, medalled, came second. Man, I'm still annoyed about that fight. But it was like one of those ones where you're on the main stage and stuff, you know, like get through whatever. On the main stage, cameras, it's being televised, you know, it was like a big experience. So like I just panicked because I'd never been in that experience before. But I did come second, won a bunch of money, which is nice in Abu Dhabi because they pay the women. And that's when, because purple belts could finally fight purple belts, so I finally got my division. And then came back and changed gyms. I was working at Dominance as a receptionist and merged over to Dominance. Got my brown belt from Dave Hart. Can't remember which year. Must have been like 2014. But he did it as a surprise. I had a trip booked to Thailand to go and train for a couple of weeks, you know, because one of the things that happens with Australian Girls in Gi and the role that I'm in is like there's not always like I'll go onto a mat and I'm in a mentor role quite often, and so I do a lot of travel to go and be outside of that bubble. I'm able to walk onto a mat and just not be anyone, and to ask rather than to give, and international travel really gives that to me. So my coach, Marty, gave me a trip to Thailand for Christmas. I went over for 3 weeks and went to train at Tiger, you know, and Dave surprised me with the brown belt the day before I left, which I turn up at Tiger. I'm not a no-gi specialist for any stretch of the imagination, and I'd never done a knee bar in my life, right? Brand new, like, brown belt, like, and just all these roided up Russians just ripping the legs off the next day. So that was fun. Definite baptism fire there. And that's when I met Alavo and Justin. So Justin Siddle and so Alavo Abaru is the head of top team in Phuket, and he established the jiu-jitsu system out in Abu Dhabi many years ago. And Justin Siddle is out there, and he's a black belt under Alavo out there. So I built and maintained a relationship with those guys. After that, came back to Australia. I travelled to Bali quite a lot, maybe 10 or 12 times or something over the next year, like a lot of travel, and then spent like quite a few months in Bali at some stage, and trained under Justin. So Justin went from Thailand to Bali. But the whole time I've been training under Marty, always under Marty from the very beginning.
Yeah.
Marty started Vanguard while I was away. I was a brown belt, and I left Australia. I was feeling really good, like top of my game. I left Australia. I sold everything I owned. I left my boyfriend. I left my apartment. I left my job. I left everything to go and just like smash brown belt, like kill it. And I was on a pretty good path too, like my timeline was good. I was 35 or something at the time, 36. Must have been 35. Can't remember. But just ready to go, and like my track record was really good, and my fitness was great, and I entered. It was 10 comps. I remember it clearly because it was 10, and it was like Abu Dhabi, Pan Am's, Worlds, the New York Open. Like I just had everything lined up, And so I went on my journey. I went Bali first, trained with all those guys, got to like roll people like Jake Matthews was over there, which is just like blows my mind. And got to train with him, did a bit of half guard, which was cool. Trained with Italo Lins, who is one of GFT's like amazing black belt athletes. Trained with a bunch of guys that were just amazing. Trained with Valentina Shevchenko for a couple of weeks. Like everything was cool, Went to, so I had like this path mapped out for a year. Went over to Hawaii. I trained with Ryan Lazares or something, I don't know. Amazing black belt. I'll look up his name later and remember it. Anyway, amazing people in Hawaii. Trained at like a bunch of different gyms there, and then went to Vegas to start to train. Was training at Cabrini Vegas. Was training with Drysdale. Was training with Soph. Was training with like everybody. Trained with Tammy Musamichi, Mikey Musamichi, like everyone. Like the trip of dreams. And then I did my bicep in a training session 2 weeks before Pan Am's. So everything changed. And I was like kind of marooned in Vegas with all of these plans, like a whole year of plans, no bicep, like just a nightmare, So my brown belt was really challenging, like a really challenging time. And I wasn't able to train for a big chunk of that year. And then when I was finally able to train, I spent a great deal of time with Marcelo Garcia and, like a bunch of people out there, just like a lot. I spent a lot of time in the Blue Basement with John Danaher and that before, like it had kind of blown up. And actually I watched him roll, which is like some kind of crazy magic, like seeing a unicorn, those training sessions there with like Jake Shields and GSP, and it just like the trip of dreams. Like I trained with everyone. I trained down at Top Team with Ricardo Laborio and his like brother's son, who is incredible. Trained with all the UFC fighters that are like big, like Amanda, everybody. Like it just like
it was just an amazing experience. Jeez.
Amazing experience. And so after that, I didn't really want to go back to where I had been training. So I started training out of Bali. I trained under Justin, and then when Vanguard finally opened, I went back and I trained out of Vanguard in Melbourne under Marty again. And then my black belt was interesting because I had rolled with, so there's a guy in New York called Paul Schreiner, who is like one of the main coaches for Marcelo Garcia. He was brought over from LA or that side of the country when Marcelo Garcia was getting ready for like his ADCC fights against Drysdale and stuff. So he was kind of headhunted and brought over. And for me, he's like the conduit to Marcelo Garcia information, you know, like I was saying before about how you have to find the right coach to be able to explain the thing to you.
Yeah.
Marcelo Garcia, of course, is GOAT, right? Like he's incredible. I just find that Paul Schreiner can give me that information much quicker. He really breaks it down. Marcelo's kind of like, you do this and you don't do that. What's the problem? You know, like, so I'm like, plenty of problems, Marcelo. You know? Like, so Paul Schreiner is like, I think that he's like incredible, you know, like you can look him up online. People will see his DVDs and stuff and see him in Marcelo's videos, and he's just this quiet genius in the background. So I had been rolling with him in New York before I left. I think I went back over one more time. I must have. And before I left, he said, well, when will we see you again? You know, like, and I was like, you know, I hope to be back as soon as possible. Like, it's New York, like from Australia. And he said, well, you'll be in a black belt next time I see you, right? And for me, that was like, okay, I'm ready. I'm good. You know, I don't actually need many other people to tell me I'm ready than that guy. Like, you know, like, and so I came back to Australia. I was training, and like I tour a lot for seminars and stuff, you know, always. And I tour for training, and I went up to Queensland for a Hicks and Gracie seminar. And that was pretty incredible. It was really nice, like, to be up there amongst that whole group. And I was training a lot with Jason Roybig, who is the head of Access in Queensland. And he said a really similar thing. He said, like, you know, when's the next belt happening? Sort of vibe, you know, like not overtly, but it was very definitely like, you're ready to go, you know. And so once that happened, I knew I was in a position where I didn't really have a team situation, and like, I was ready for my belt. There was no reason to wait. Like, I wasn't going to do anything more in brown belt. I missed that opportunity. I was too injured to like make a crack at it again, you know, like, so it's like, why wait? Like, so my black belt has some shades of issues with it, being that I'm the head of a very large organization, and anybody I choose, and this is something that people don't talk about, but anybody I choose to be intrinsically linked to me for all of time and put ahead of me needs to be the right person, you know, like, so for me, it was really important that I got to choose who I allowed to do this for me, not the other way around. So I spoke to, like, there was 3 main people that I was talking to, and they were all in conversations with each other also. So everybody was on the same page. And the things that came core to me was that I just need somebody that will help me create this opportunity for myself and for the women behind me, but won't stand in the way or change the direction or want to like manage my direction in any way that might potentially damage the first female lineage that Australia could create, you know. So like, to me, my belt was a lot about community, because that's what I've always been anyway. Yes, it's about my achievements or whatever as an athlete, and yes, I was ready to go, like, based on like athletic output, if anything, you know. But the bigger thing for me was like how important it was to protect that belt and who I am, though that sounds really wanky, for the future, you know. So I spoke to Justin about it. Marty, I would have loved it to be Marty. Ideally, I would love it to be Marty. And in fact, he is my coach, and I am his lineage, and I'm like the biggest advocate for him, and probably the most prominent, like you know, fruition of his work. But he didn't have enough stripes, so we've got to tick some stupid administrative boxes. So I can't even have my black belt off the person who actually created me, which I hate. But I understand, and like, I'll adhere to the rules, whatever, you know, like, so I went to Bali to get my black belt from Justin, but Justin had 2 stripes and they changed the rule to 3 right at that time, right? So we flew a Lavo in from Thailand. So what it is you can have a black belt that's like 4 stripes and up or whatever in the room with a black belt that has 2 stripes, so they can acknowledge that black belt's acknowledging that you're getting a black belt. Crazy, like, hierarchical stuff that doesn't make any sense, and it just is what it is, and we had to tick the administrative boxes. That's what it was. So black belt is from Justin, and I see that as a massive gift from Justin, because this is a friend that's enabling me to have this opportunity in my life. Alavo, I'm truly grateful for allowing that to happen. So he trusted his student to trust me and all this kind of stuff. And then the reality is my black belt was created by Martin Gonzalez. Like, that's just a fact. And me. That's what it is, you know? So that was my black belt. There was a bunch of people, a bunch of my best mates from Perth over there. They came over for it. A bunch of people there that it was so important for me that they were there. But I didn't really get to do that experience in Australia of like the people that came up with me didn't get to see it or whatever. But it just had to happen how it did. Justin was incredible. Like, when he made his speech, he cried and he just was like, you know, I'm just like, I just know what you are going to do with this belt. And I just think it's so important that the world has this belt on this person, you know, and that he was just really excited to be part of that and enabling that to happen, you know. And I think that's important. Like, I'm like Marty, I don't really need to wear a belt. Like, he wouldn't wear a belt if he didn't have to, you know. Like, I think that my skills speak for themselves, my community work speaks for itself. He was black belt at blue belt, you know.
Yeah.
It's very important for my community to see me in it and to see me be it in the way that I am, you know, like, kind of, and that it's mine. It's not, I've always done this solo, you know, like, I've done it in a different way. There's a lot of, I'm not speaking about them like in any lesser, but there's a lot of women that are partners of somebody else, you know, like, or have had like a little bit more home support or whatever. I'm completely homemade, homegrown, you know, like, and that like own made, own grown. And regardless of like the path I've taken with teams or whatever, I've been loyal to this sport. I've been loyal to this community. I like, you know, and the belt itself then is sort of theirs as well as mine, you know, like, that's my belt story.
That's one of the most sort of endearing, unorthodox, just so amazing stories of a black belt. There's the thing I love about this, you know, you never know. I assumed everyone's stories would be the same, you know. Holy smokes, that is an incredible story. And it just sort of highlights everything you've spoken about. You know, it's everything that you've achieved, but so much of what you achieved is not for you anymore. And it's for this community that you've grown. And I heard you say that, and that's one of the reasons you don't compete in Australia anymore.
Yeah.
Right? Because of this community that you represent.
Well, yeah, and it was for a great period of time. That's true. Now I'm retired. I'm 40 and I'm good. Like, I'm still struggling with the acceptance of not being able to compete in the adult division. I think I'm still competitive, but at some point you got to let it go, you know. And like, I'm like, knock on wood, I walked out of it like having got to compete as a black belt with no catastrophic injuries. I mean, there was injuries, but like, not many people get out unscathed, you know.
Sure.
So I'm very, very lucky. And so I have to just sort of knock it on the head, even though, you know, I'm rolling with all of the girls that are competing, and like is fine, you know, like we have great roles. It's not like I'm the old person on the mat, you know, but it's like, so now it's age that's retired me from Australian
competition. Okay.
That's lifestyle choices, all that kind of stuff. Like, I put everything on hold for almost 10 years, you know, to be a competitor, like family, education, finances, everything, you know, and it's just time to not spend energy in that space. But it is true. Like, I don't want to build a community and then get in fights with them.
Yeah.
It's just, you know, and it does come back to that maternal thing. This is my expression of that. And I'm not interested in hitting the kids. Like, you know, it's not my bag, you know. I want to see them thrive. Like, that's more what I want.
Yeah, an amazing way to put it. Jess, when you look back at it all, and you know, hopefully this has been a cathartic experience for you as well. Reflecting on it all, what do you think your highs? What do you think is your highest high, and what do you think your lowest low has been?
A highest high was that bronze medal in Abu Dhabi. Like, you know, if I am feeling like I have an emotional block of any kind of emotional constipation, I'll watch that video and I'll cry straight away, get those endorphins happening. You know, like, it still brings up, like, I've never felt anything like that. That moment, like, worth all the years to go up to it. Like, I've actually never felt that endorphin rush, that experience where, like, I mean, there's happy crying and then there's whatever that was.
Yeah.
I don't know what it was, you know, like, and I can recall it.
Yeah.
So that's what the coolest thing about that is that moment I can recall, and I'll always have it. And like, I can't even explain it. Highest of high I've ever experienced in my life. I don't know how else you get it.
Yeah.
It's a 10-year path to one moment that lasted for about 30 seconds that I can't even explain to you. But if you ever get a chance to watch that footage, you can see it in my face.
Yeah,
like,
for sure.
My whole face changes. I don't even look like me, you know? Like, it was the coolest thing I've ever experienced in my life. Like,
that's
just
really cool. That's
yeah,
really cool.
Very validating. So that was awesome. Lowest lows. Oh, look, I can't think of a lowest low. You would think that it's the injury or whatever.
Yeah.
I don't think that's true, because I think that there's some kind of, I don't know, end of Street Fighter, like street cred story time and all of that. I think lowest lows is discovering that, seeing behind the curtain of Oz, you know, discovering that there's some really shit humans with some great skills. And that really broke my heart. Really broke my heart. I had pedestaled this sport and every individual in it as some kind of god. It's a little bit like, I did the same thing when I used to watch punk bands, you know, like I just thought every guy on stage was the coolest, sexiest, most genius husband material, you know, and they weren't. They were dickhead teenage boys, you know.
Yeah.
And I think the lowest low in jiu-jitsu is discovering that, you know, but then there's highest highs in discovering the people that are worth your adoration and and your pedestal, you know, like.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
So that would be me.
And then, you know, you can't be taught that. You have to experience it. You have to be around for a while, and you have to be disappointed to learn that lesson.
Yeah, it's a gross one. It makes me sick thinking about it. So yes, that's definitely my lowest low.
It qualifies.
There
you go.
Yeah.
So Jess, what's next? What's the future for Jess Fraser?
Future for me is like, come on, end of COVID. I just want to roll. I'm sorry. I have to apologize for rescheduling us to today. We were meant to talk yesterday, but I had to go roll with Gina Albisi, who is a female black belt, my size, one of the legends of the sport in Australia. I thought that you might be okay with that.
I'm only just cool with it now. Okay. It's all episode I've been fuming on it. No. Please.
It's just, so I hadn't rolled since March 14th. Is that true?
Oh.
13th. I haven't done anything. So we shut down really early. We were super proactive. I've been very diligent with adhering to the rules, and so yesterday was my first roll in 108 days. And so I just want to be back in the sport. First off, I'd like to get my timing back. That'd be nice. Did some pretty special things yesterday. So I'd like that. The future for Jess Fraser is to at least get back to the Canada I was 108 days ago. But then next, so I have bought a van, and I have bought 64 squares of mats. So I've got 8x8 of mats, and I have a gazebo that is 10 by 5, and I'm going to hit this damn East Coast, and I'm going to do a tour up and down the coast.
Awesome.
Put those mats out, get people rolling. As soon as we can touch each other, man, I'm going to touch you guys. So that's my future. That's what I want to do, is go up, go do as much the East Coast as I can until that van explodes, and just roll with people, you know, in their gyms, outdoors, wherever we can. Just get some open mats happening. I'll definitely do an Australian Girls and Gi open mat tour. We'll get the Australian Girls and Gi comps happening again. I'll probably bang out a reunion camp, just on the sly. I don't know. That's sort of the future. But also the reality is I totally know myself, and I know that I'm going to go too hard, too fast. So right now I'm working on injury prevention, just prepping for all that sort of stuff, and just trying to keep it a little bit contained, because my excitement for us all getting back to jiu-jitsu is probably a little bit nuts. So like that energy like still keeps happening, you know. So yeah, that's kind of future for me, and just
awesome.
Hopefully, yeah, have my life, my passion, my sport, my community, my world back. You know, that would be really nice. Can't look forward to it.
Oh, I can't wait. I can't wait to see it. Everyone, I mean, God, it's just motivating. It's so motivating to hear that's what's going to happen soon, because it's light at the end of the tunnel, and
yeah.
you know, grasp it with two hands. But incredibly wise words to just don't go too hard too early, everyone out there. Once we get back into it.
Yeah.
Oh, Jess, look, I gotta thank you so much for being with us this afternoon, sharing your story with us. It has been utterly fascinating. It has just been so cool to hear about you, your upbringing, your background, the things that drive you, this community you created, these competitions that you just excelled at, how everything just lines up, how you think about things, how you see it. It's been seriously a really amazing opportunity for me. I've learned so much from it. I don't even need to release this episode. I might just keep it to myself, because it's been fantastic. So, listeners, we hope that you have thoroughly enjoyed this episode of Behind the Black Belt with Jess Fraser. Now, if you want to connect with Jess and see the great work that she's doing out there, you can find out more information at www.jessfraser.com. And you can also follow Jess on Instagram. Just search for Koala Jiu-Jitsu. And you'll find Jess's Instagram, heaps of photos there. You know, I've rushed her through that period where she was talking about her travels through America. Check out Instagram. It is thoroughly cool. Some of the stuff that she has done and some of the representation she has done for our great nation. So check that out. And if you want more information on AGIG, you can check it out at www.australiangirlsingi.com. And if you're looking for somewhere to train in Melbourne, you can find Jess at Vanguard BJJ. Check them out on Facebook. Find out all the information that you need there. Incredibly easy to find. And again, Jess, I can't thank you enough. It's been an absolute pleasure for myself. It's been a pleasure, no doubt, for everyone that's listening. Have you got any final words before we wrap up?
Just thank you so much for having me on, and like having a really big focus for including everybody in this story of black belts. I think it's very cool what you're doing. I love that you've interviewed Kim. She's been a big part of my journey as well. So like, I don't know, it's like all weaving in together, which is very nice. Also, I guess just like little plugs, I am obviously keen to be working again. So if you want to book me for seminars, for private lessons or whatever, I am mobile. I can come to you and we can train. I also just like to train, you know, like, so if you've got an open mat that like people are chill at and everybody's sweet with like visiting people, I am relatively disease-free and very keen to come and roll. Like, I just want to roll. Like, it's pretty uncomplicated. I just enjoy the sport, you know, so let me know where you're at, and yeah, if you have open mats, I can come to.
Really cool. All right. Thank you so much for that, Jess Fraser. And ladies and gents, that's it. Until next time, this is Rich signing off for Behind the Black Belt.
Behind the Black Belt is proud to support veteran grappling. Veteran grappling is using the grappling arts to improve the lives of military veterans and first responders. Visit www.veterangrappling.com to learn about scholarship opportunities and more.
Join our community on Facebook and our website at www.behindtheblackbelt.com. Behind the Black Belt is a TDP Studios production. Behind the Black Belt is copyright of Richard Thapthing Thong and TDP Studios. The music used in this episode is Rocking Forward by X Take Rux and is used under an Attribution International 4.0 license.